Good morning, students. This is your geography lesson. Students, as you know that we are reading Unit 10 Trade, and in this unit we have read how do we benefit from trade and what are exports and imports. Yesterday we read about exports. In today's lesson, we will discuss the imports of Pakistan. So we start our lesson. I need you to open page number 189 and read this page with me. Let's start reading and I will explain you briefly. Pakistan has been importing a fairly large number of items from other countries. As you know very well that we need to depend upon others for our needs and necessities. Similarly, Pakistan is depending fairly upon other countries to fulfill the needs. The items can be grouped as follows. 1. Food, e.g. wheat, edible oil, sugar, pulses, etc. As Pakistan is an agriculture country, still there is shortage of food and we have to import wheat, edible oil, sugar, pulses, etc. Number 2. Machinery, e.g. textile, electrical, construction, mining and agricultural machinery. Students, as Pakistan is developing country, we do not have heavy investment to produce electrical instruments, construction material, mining equipments and agricultural machinery. So we have to depend upon other countries to buy such things. 3. Petroleum and petroleum products. Similarly, we have to import petroleum and petroleum products that are necessary for the survival of our country. 4. Textiles, e.g. synthetic fibers, synthetic fiber and artificial substance or material. As we are producing cotton and raw cotton material, still we need raw material to produce various things in our country. 5. Fertilizers and other chemicals. Pakistan is importing heavy amount of fertilizers and other chemicals from different countries. 6. Metals, e.g. iron and steel. We are importing steel and iron and such materials from other countries. Miscellaneous, various types, a mixture of various things. The above items can be classified into 3 types of goods. The percentage share of each group is given in figure 10.7. Number 1, you can say A, capital goods, B, raw material. In raw material there are 2 categories, raw material for capital goods and number 2, raw material for consumer goods. C, consumer goods. So Pakistan imports capital goods. Capital goods, for example, machinery. Pakistan is importing machinery because machinery is used for producing things. If we invest or if we invest things in industry, if we put machinery in industry, automatically our production will be increased. So Pakistan is importing capital goods. It imports raw materials like iron ore, coke and crude oil. Raw material means that these things or these materials are used for the production. It also imports consumer goods, including fertilizer, wheat, electrical appliances, and sugar. Consumer goods are that goods that are useful for consumers, for the people who will be able to use them, as fertilizer are useful for farmers, wheat is the need of people, human beings. Similarly, electrical appliances are also in domestic demand. So these are imports of Pakistan. Initially, Pakistan was a heavy importer of consumer goods. With industrialization, the categories of imports started changing. Pakistan was importing a huge amount of things, but with the passage of time, as we established industries, different types of industries in our country, it decreases the amount of imports. In 1974 to 75, the share of consumer goods was 23% of the total imports, and the capital goods and raw material for capital and consumer goods accounted for 77% of the total imports. So these were the shares of the total imports. What was the share of goods? Consumer goods, it was 23% of the total imports, as well as what was the share of capital and consumer raw material. It was for 77%, and in last years it was 17.3% of the total amount. Well, as more of them are now manufactured in Pakistan, now Pakistan is going to be self-sufficient in these commodities. Whereas the share of capital goods and raw material for capital and consumer goods was 77% of the total imports. However, only a small change has been observed in the categories of imports from 1974 to 2017. Still, we are not self-sufficient, as Pakistan is developing industries in different areas, and it is observed general improvement in this sector. Still, there is slight change during many years. Trend of import. Pakistan is importing from around 100 countries. Pakistan is importing from more than 100 countries. It imports most from Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Japan, USA, UK, and Germany. So, how many countries are exporting things to Pakistan? These are Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Japan, USA, UK, and Germany. How do changes in categories of traded goods affect our balance of trade and economy? Categories of exports and imports are closely linked into the balance of payments in particular and the economy in general. So these two things are very important to keep the balance. If international market prices of raw material are low, and if a country's major export consists of raw materials, then the earnings from trade would be relatively low. If imports are of manufactured goods, then the balance of trade will be affected. Students, if we export raw material and in international market the price of raw material is low, it will definitely affect the foreign exchange, because we are we are importing heavy machinery, we are importing different things that are valuable thing, manufactured goods, and these are their prices are heavy, their prices are high in international market. We are exporting low price materials and importing manufactured goods that are in high price, so the balance of trade will be affected. We have to suffer financially. Major changes in categories of exports should be simultaneously followed by the changes in the categories of imports. Imports will consist of high value goods that consume our foreign exchange resources and negatively affect the economy in many different ways. As we are importing high value goods and exporting raw material that do not have value in international market and comparatively low in price, so it it creates negative effect on the economy of our country. And what are the different effects, what are the different ways how we are suffering from this? The imbalance of trade has to be filled by taking loans or foreign economic assistance, which increases debt. So, to keep the balance in foreign exchange, we have to borrow economic assistance, economic help from other countries. As the result, we are increasing our debt. Developmental projects have to be curtailed. Curtailed, reduce in quantity. We should reduce the quantity of developmental projects. Reliance on foreign assistance increases. And what is the imbalance of trade? Another factor that is putting negative effect on the economy is reliance on foreign assistance increases. In the case of non-payment of loans, an economic or trade embargo may be imposed. Embargo, an official ban on trade. If we are not able to return the loan, so we can be suffer from the official ban on trade. We cannot export our goods and production to the other countries. In order to repay the loans, the assets of the country may have to be sold to foreign companies. So we are forced to sell our assets to the foreign companies. Ultimately, foreign companies will take charge of our production, and they will earn money and send back to their own countries. Higher taxation limits the purchasing power of the consumer, resulting in lower demand and less production. As the government impose heavy taxes on the commodities and the goods, the common person is unable to purchase the things. They are not they cannot afford the goods and basic needs of their life. In a result, the demand is low and the production is less. Business and commercial activity slows down as there is less production. Similarly, it will affect the business and commercial activities. Will lessen these activities. To improve the balance of trade, structural changes are needed in the category and the value of imports and exports. So the government should take notice of such things, and there should be policies to keep the balance of trade. Such changings and such improvements are needed for the value of imports and exports. So students, this is your lesson for today. I hope you have understood from this lesson. Thank you for listening. Allah Hafiz.